Hello and good day, students. This is lecture 2 of 6 on module 5 writing skills in the course GST 111/211 communication in English. My name is Dr. Aliyu Yakubu Yusuf. Stay with me and don't go away. Now, the lecture is on the writing process. The writing process. And like I have said, this is the second lecture of the 6 lectures that we are going to have on this module. The writing process is made up of a series of interrelated steps which are set in motion from the moment a writer intends to compose a piece of writing up to the time when the piece becomes a finished product. Yes, when we talk about the writing process, we are talking about a series of steps or stages that are involved when you set out to compose any piece of writing. These steps are connected or related. They are chronological. They happen in series. Therefore, some happen before, some during, and some after the writing is finished. What I mean by this is that there are stages that happen before the writing begins. They are called the pre-writing stage. This involves two different activities, brainstorming and researching. Then we have some events that take place during the actual writing, that is the writing stage. Under this we have two activities, outlining and drafting. Then finally we have the post-writing stage. These are activities which take place after the writing is finished, after the writing is concluded. Here we have two main activities, revision as well as editing and proofreading. These are the 6 different steps in the writing process. Now we are going to discuss all these steps one after the other in the subsequent slides. Now let us begin with the pre-writing stage. Like I have said, in this stage we have two different activities, brainstorming and researching. Here we have brainstorming on this slide. Brainstorming is a writing technique that enables a writer to think about ideas related to the topic. During brainstorming, the writer develops topics, subtopics, concepts, general and specific ideas on the proposed topic. During this stage of brainstorming, the writer thinks about the ideas that he thinks are relevant to the topic he or she is writing about. Here it involves a lot of thinking, a lot of pondering, and a lot of brain activity in which the writer think creatively, think innovatively to decide what and what does he need to involve or to include in his piece of writing. That is why brainstorming encourages creativity and innovation, because a writer is expected at this stage to use his creativity and innovation to develop ideas that he thinks are important, that he thinks are relevant and should be included in his piece of writing. Now, the most important thing in this stage is for the writer to put down into writing all the ideas that come to his mind. Any idea here is viable and can be included. Here, the writer shouldn't concern himself or herself with the grammar and the structure of his writing. What is most important is to get the ideas and get them listed or shortlisted in a piece of paper, so that later he can decide what to include and what not to include. This is the second stage of the pre-writing process. In this stage, which is called researching, the reader, the writer, as the name implies, should engage himself in researching for relevant information, relevant data, going to the library, reading a lot of books, searching online, reading for online materials, looking for newspapers, magazines, and any other source of information. The most important thing here is to search for relevant information or data that will be included in the writer's final piece of writing. Now, the writer here should gather relevant information from credible sources that will serve as evidence and support to his or her points. Here, as a writer, you are expected to look for relevant information from credible sources so that whatever claims you are making or you make in your piece of writing, you have points, you have evidence to support your claims. Here, it involves searching for in-depth or complex knowledge about what you want to write about. Here, you can take detailed notes. You can write down your sources and your detailed information. You can also use keywords to search for more information and formulate questions which you should cover. This means that when you are searching for data or information online, you can use some keywords or catchphrases to look for relevant and credible information that should form part of your writing materials. So all this take place before you begin the actual writing. You have brainstorming and then you have researching. And now that you have your data at hand, you have all the information you need, you have the points gathered, then you delve into the next stage of the writing process, which is the actual writing stage that we are going to discuss next. Before we discuss the writing stage, we have some pre-writing activities. These are some activities that you as students are given to practice as pre-writing activities. Now the topic given here is climate change the most pressing issue of our time? Is climate change the most pressing issue of our time? Here you are given some 4 different questions. Number 1, how do you go about writing this topic? When you are given a topic like this, the first thing is to think, how do I go about writing this topic? How do I go about it? What procedure do I need to follow? What do I need to do before I begin to write? Then number 2, brainstorm to decide the content of this essay. Then you brainstorm, you think, you ponder, you understand, you decide what do I need to include in the content of this essay on this climate change topic. Then number 3, consult as much sources as possible to gather credible information on climate change and how it affects life today. Then you consult relevant information. You search for credible sources, gather a lot of information as much as possible on climate change. This is researching, right? Then compile all points, ideas and information necessary for writing on this topic. Then later you compile all the points, all the ideas, all the information. You have them written down on a piece of paper. That's pre-writing activities. Now let us go to the writing stage straight. Now the writing stage. This is the actual stage where you begin to put your pen on paper to write something. Here we have 2 steps. We have outlining, then we have drafting. The first one here is outlining. After brainstorming and researching, the writer gathers all the available information for writing. This takes you to the next stage of writing, which is outlining. So after brainstorming and researching, the next is to delve directly into the writing stage. We begin by outlining. Outlining involves organizing and structuring your thought and ideas into a meaningful whole. Here, you need to understand the purpose of writing, the nature of your audience, as well as the reason why you are writing, including the nature of the topic you are writing about. Therefore, you think about the ideas you have gathered. Which idea you think should come in the first paragraph? Which idea you think should go to the second paragraph? Which idea you think should go to the third paragraph? And so on and so forth, continuously up to the end of the essay. Which idea do you think should be the main idea? Which one is the subsidiary or supporting idea? This allows you to overcome what is called the writer's block, since you have your ideas laid out. Now, still in outlining, this is not a stage where you bother about editing your work. Rather, you just outline all the ideas you think should go into your piece of writing. Here, in this stage, you structure your introduction, you prepare the number of your writing, and you also create a suitable paragraph, including main and supporting paragraph, as well as the concluding part of your writing. In the outlining stage, here you decide how to present your writing, how your piece of writing should look like, in terms of the number of paragraphs that you want to include, in terms of whether you are going to have diagrams, charts, figures, pictures, and so on and so forth. Here, you may not need much details, but as a writer, you should focus on writing down necessary information to avoid the loss of relevant ideas. Yes, in your outline, make sure all the relevant information are written down, because if you don't do so, you may lose some relevant ideas or information that are critical in your piece of writing. So here it involves creating an outline, a skeletal outline of your piece of writing. Now the next stage of the writing process is drafting. This is where you create the first version of your piece of writing. Drafting involves creating the first draft of your piece of writing. Here you use your outline as a guide. That outline which you created previously should be your guide as you expand it, as you develop it into a more detailed and more coherent piece of writing. Usually in this stage you will find out that your draft has a lot of errors and blemishes, so you don't bother yourself about that, because when you concentrate on having an error-free draft, it may limit the flow of ideas in your piece of writing. Your ideas may not flow freely, so you are advised to create a draft without bothering about perfecting it. Focus here on giving credible information that you have outlined previously. Here, you are also advised that your introduction should be as attractive as possible, so that your readers can be glued, can be kept interested in reading your piece of writing. Now you choose expressions or words that are suitable for the purpose and for the readers. You are also advised that when you are creating your first draft, don't allow much time to pass in between writing your ideas, because that may interrupt the flow of your ideas. Don't take a long time while writing, because that may interrupt the ideas or the flow of ideas in your piece of writing. As much as possible, try to finish your essay within a short period of time. In this slide, we have some activities that are related to the stage of writing. Here we are also adopting the same topic as the one we gave for free writing activities. The topic is climate change the most pressing issue of our time? Is climate change the most pressing issue of our time? From the point discussed about outlining and drafting, you are given 3 tasks. Attempt creating an outline for the topic above. Use the ideas that you have gathered previously and create an outline, a skeletal outline for the topic above. Prepare a draft of 3 full-scope pages on the topic. Here you are also given a task that you should prepare a 3 full-scope pages on the topic is climate change the most pressing issue of our time. Create a draft using the outline you have. Create a 3-page of full-scope on the topic. Now read through the written work and make an elaborate revision on what you have written. Now you can go through the written work after finishing it to find out where you need to elaborate or expand in your piece of writing. Now, After the writing stage, the final stage is the post-writing stage. Here we have revision, then we have editing and proofreading. Now in the revision, this is where you review and revise your work with the intention of improving the content of the piece of writing. Here, like as the name implies, revision, you revise with the intent of making the piece of writing better than it is. But you are advised that after finishing your draft, you should take a short break to allow your brain to cool off. When your brain cools off, then later you bring the piece of writing and go through it all over again. Then you will notice a lot of places that need improvement, points that need elaboration, ideas that need revising. Now, the most important reason why revision is made is to ensure that the intended message is passed across to the reader. It also ensures that the purpose of writing your piece is fully attained. Now, you check about the tone, the mood, the style of writing to make sure everything is appropriately written. You can also reread the piece of writing to make sure the phrases and sentences are effective. You can also check for coherence and unity. You have to make sure that your ideas are united and coherent. The phrases and sentences are fully structured and are fully effective for the purpose for which you create your piece of writing. Now finally we have editing. Let us go to the next slide. Writing activity, and is the last stage of the whole writing process. After revision, the writer then edits and proofreads the whole work. Here, your focus should be on improving the content of your work, and editing centers on checking grammatical aspects, including spelling, punctuation, imperfect structures, and other grammaticality. What we are expected to do here at this point is to check whether the spelling of words are correct, whether you have used correct punctuation marks, whether the structures of your sentences are correct, and whether all other aspects of grammar, like for example the use of correct prepositions and articles, are all spot on. Here you may also need to give the work to someone else to read, edit and proofread for you, because sometimes a second eye is really important when it comes to editing. You yourself may not notice some of the errors that need to be corrected at this stage. Therefore, you are advised to find someone who will read it, edit it, and proofread it, so that everything that needs to be fixed is fixed. Now, there is a big difference between editing and proofreading. Editing is much more critical, while proofreading focuses more on superficial errors. After the writing is thoroughly edited and proofread, then the work is ready for the target audience. Now, after all those spelling, punctuations, imperfect structures, and other grammatical aspects are fixed, then your piece of writing is set for the target audience. Now we have some post-writing activities related to the same topic we have been using. Is climate change the most pressing issue of our time? Now we have two activities here. Check your draft to ensure accuracy in terms of content, mood and style. You are advised here to check your draft that you have compiled at the previous stage to make sure it is accurate in terms of content, mood and style. Then finally, edit and proofread your draft. Exchange your work with your classmate or a friend so that you can edit and proofread for one another. This is the last slide for lecture 2, and it contains the summary of the whole lecture. So far we have discussed the writing process, and like I have told you, we have 3 stages of the writing process: pre-writing, writing and post-writing. Under these 3 stages we have a total of 6 different activities that are related to writing. Number 1 is brainstorming, number 2 is researching, number 3 is outlining, number 4 is drafting, number 5 is revising, and number 6 is editing. Now in lecture 3 we are going to discuss letter writing. Thank you very much for listening.